Good morning and welcome to the latest edition of Raising the NSBAR. I'm Jeff Lasky, the CEO of this great organization, the North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors. I hope you are continuing to stay safe and healthy. I have a couple of things before we get going. Please watch NSBAR Communications later this week for the announcement asking NSBAR members to apply for our committees for the new term, which is October 1 of 2020 through September 30th of 2021. I encourage everyone, no matter what your previous experience, to jump in and become a more active part of our great real estate community. Serving on committees is how to become involved, gain knowledge, and expand your professional network. On Thursday, September 17th at 1:00 p.m., we're doing something that's I'm really excited about. It's our first virtual awards and installation. It's for obvious reasons that we're doing it virtually. It is, by the way, our 101st NSBAR Awards and Installation event. We're really excited about this unique opportunity. It will be an exciting, fast-paced show, I promise you that. And we're expecting a record turnout because it's virtual. So don't be left out. Look for information from us about this in the coming couple of weeks. I'm thrilled to report to all of you that I am continuing my lucky streak of getting really important people on this podcast. Today's guest is no exception. Dan Wagner is Senior Vice President of Government Relations for the Inland Real Estate Group of Companies. He has been a licensed real estate broker since 2004. So at 10 years old, he was the youngest licensed broker ever, and also holds Series 7 and 63 security licenses. Mr. Wagner has served as an officer for the Illinois Realtors and as president of the Chicago Association of Realtors. I have a feeling that most everybody tuning in today knows who Dan Wagner is. Now, I reached out to Dan to talk about a specific subject today that is of great interest to many NSBAR members and their clients, 1031 exchanges. Dan, I started reading your bio on Saturday, and I apologize as I haven't finished it yet. I just ran out of time. There's so much there. How are you, my friend?
Mr. Lasky, I am terrific, and congratulations on 101 years for NSBAR. Yay, that's incredible.
How about that? And despite what people have suggested, I have not been here for all 101 years. So just want to make that clear. Before I get started, I don't want to leave out a couple of important things that we have in common. First, you and my wife, Joan, are fellow Redbirds. You're both graduates of Illinois State. I love Illinois State, right? So the other thing is that you're a father. Oh, there you go. You've got
my mask is Redbird mask. My socks. I wear socks too that are Redbird socks. So it's all
very good.
Yes.
We also, I've made note, you are the father of triplets. I am the uncle. I am the uncle of triplets.
That's right? So very good.
Which do you think is harder?
It's going to cost you more as an uncle, or it better cost you more as an uncle.
Yeah, Mike. How are your wife and children, by the way? Everybody's good?
We have Irish quadruplets too. So we have John, Michael, Annie, and then 13 months later we had Danny. So they're all they're now 18 and 17. All good.
Oh, terrific. Okay. I ask every guest on Raising the NSBAR what his or her favorite restaurant is, because I'm compiling a list of places to go. So I'd like to hear yours.
All right. Well, for Dan Wagner, if you know me, you're going to know what I'm going to say. Being from Springfield, Illinois, my favorite restaurant in the whole world is Saputo's Italian restaurant. Saputo's is it's something that for me, Mr. Frank Saputo lived down the street, and we lived out in the country, and he would be the guy to pick us up in the carpool. And when he would, for his turn, he would always take us to Dairy Queen. So I love Mr. Saputo, and I love his restaurant. God rest his soul. His kids have taken it over, obviously.
I love Saputo's. Been there. I've been down to Springfield, obviously, quite a bit, and love it. Absolutely great suggestion. So, all right, I want to talk about 1031 exchanges in two ways, basically. The first way, what they are, why it's a valuable tool for all realtors to be familiar with, and then in the second way, I'm going to ask you about 1031s. Are they under attack right now? We need to hear the story behind this.
Sure.
and what we can do about what's going on. So, and throughout the podcast, for our listeners, any questions you might have for our guests can be posted in the comments on the video on Facebook. Bradley will text them to me. I'll endeavor to get to them if time allows. So please feel free to do so. And I'm going to turn to you, Dan, and ask you to please explain to our audience what a 1031 exchange is and why it's a good thing.
Absolutely. 1031 exchange has been in the IRS code, the tax provisions, for over 100 years. Actually, it's going to celebrate its 100th year anniversary on 2021. It has been so important. And what it does, it's kind of like the 401k of real estate. You're able to grow your real estate, real property investments, and you're able to then go to another property and sell that for like-kind property, another real property, and you can move up in value, and your taxes are held at abeyance. You don't have to pay the capital gains tax, and there's and other depreciation recapture, and the Obama medical device tax. And so if you have $1 million property that you're going to sell, that's a property where you're making money on, it's an income producing property, you sell that. If you plow it into an exchange, meaning if you plow it into something that's for more money or greater or the same, your taxes can be deferred. So that means that about almost $300,000 you don't have to pay to Uncle Sam. So you can put that into your investment. So that is a really big difference with being able to grow your income and to grow what you own. So people all the time are able to go from like a little strip mall, they sell it, they get to a bigger strip mall, and so on and so forth. Or you have a second home that you're renting and you decide, I'm going to get another home, or you're going to get a bigger one, or you're going to get a 6 flat. It just, as you keep growing and growing, and eventually when you cash out is when you have to pay Uncle Sam.
All right, now I want to jump in there for a second, because over the years, I've heard it referred to as a like-kind exchange as well. And I think sometimes people get hung up on what a like-kind exchange is. Like, oh, do I have to exchange a 6 flat for a 6 flat or something like that? Could you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's for income producing property. So that's what it has to be for. So you cannot exchange your home, your primary residence that you live in. You cannot do that. It has to be for a farm, for an apartment complex for vacant land. It's anything that's for income producing. And the other thing is it's not for, you're not able to use it if you're in the flipping business, because you have to be able to buy it with intent as an investment. And the other nuance to a 1031 exchange is that you can't hold the money. The money has to be held by a qualified intermediary in between the exchanging time period for the next property. So that's a very important thing. You need a third party, and there are some details related to the 1031 exchange that you have to have this qualified intermediary involved with you, because there's certain time periods. You have up to 45 days to identify the next property you're going to go into. You have 120 days to close. So, I mean, there's a variety of rules and regulations, and it's super important to have a good qualified intermediary to work with.
Okay, so obviously, while this is something that's of great value to investors, it certainly has great value to real estate professionals that work with investors, right? So
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
And well, we'll talk more. I think I want to go this way. I've always understood that people can do exchanges forever, really until they die,
right,
and never pay taxes. But does research bear that out? That actually is what happens?
No. What happens? There's 2 studies that were done. One is the Ling Petrova study, and the other one was Ernst & Young. These studies were done during the last tax reform for 2017 that really evaluated how 1031s impact the economy. And really, it shows that 88% of the exchanges, actually, there's a taxable event where the government does get its money. What it's important to realize is that there is, with the capital gains, if you die, you get a stepped up in basis. So when you do a 1031 exchange, if you die, your heirs are able to get the exchange property for the stepped up in value, and they don't have to pay the tax. But in all of the research, it shows 88% of properties that are sold actually do eventually pay the tax.
Mhm. So it's certainly beneficial to the extent that you're likely deferring the incurrence of taxes, right, until later on down the road. I
Eh,
mean, until,
right.
yeah.
As I said, it's like a 401k of real estate. I mean, right now I put money and you put money into your 401k, and the concept is that it grows tax free. It's growing, 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 and then when you take it out, that's when you pay the tax. The same thing is with this is what happens in commercial real estate. People, you grow your business, you grow your portfolio of properties, and this is one of the things that has created wealth across the whole spectrum. This isn't for fat cat, rich guy. This is for the middle class, the mom and pop that are able to get put their money together, and they find that they can have a little apartment, and then they say, boy, this is going well, I can get to a bigger one, and that's how people throughout their lives grow their wealth. And it's phenomenal. Farmers, by the way, love this. And I could talk a little bit more if you want about the aspects of how the 1031 impacts different parts of our economy as well.
Okay. Well, I do want to get to that, but before I get there, there's probably, I'm sure there are real estate professionals out there that are saying right now, boy, this sounds interesting. It sounds like something I might want to do is represent investors. So my question to you is, what would you suggest? I don't know if I'll go with a minimum standard, but what do these people really need to know before they dive into this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if this is something that you want to learn about, that probably one of the most important things for you is to talk with a qualified intermediary. There's so many different companies out there that are incredible. The one that I think that has the most market share is IPX 1031. They're here in Chicago, and if you were to talk with them, they would give you the primer of the 1031, because just like with all things that we do in our real estate practice is education. The 1031 is all about education, and it's simply another tool in your toolbox. Because when you're a realtor and somebody wants to sell their second home because they're tired of the toilets, trash, and tenants, or they need help, you can explain. You don't have to go into another property. You can do a Delaware statutory trust 1031. That's a whole other section that gets people into a fractional share interest of something bigger that they don't have to worry about. So all it is a tool, and it's one of the things that realtors should know about. And this is especially for your NSBAR folks. There's a lot of people out there that are very involved with some higher end homes in your neck of the woods, and there's a lot of people that have additional property. So you might be their realtor for their home, but this could be another income stream for you to be able to say, you know what, I can do more than just a home. I understand how the 1031s work, and you're able to help someone grow their business. And that's where you really get into the high flyers. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it seems pretty clear to me, and I'm thinking our audience, that this is a great thing to know about and to take advantage of as an investor, as a real estate professional. But you did mention a moment or two ago that there's a real benefit to our economy in general.
Yes. Yep.
From 1031 exchanges. So I'm going to ask you to give me an example or two that will help us understand that
Sure.
aspect of it.
So what I talked about before, like for the $1 million property that's sold, if you do a 1031 exchange, you're able to keep all that million to invest in your next property. If you don't do a 1031 exchange, you only have $700,000. So when you 1031 exchange, that $300,000 extra that you're not giving Uncle Sam, basically. And again, that's not just capital gains. It's capital gains. It's also paid depreciation recapture. It's paying for the medical tax. So when you add all those up, it's roughly that. It's not, everyone's different, but you see that people put more money into the next thing that they buy. What happens is the owners of property maintain, buyers renovate. And so the studies show that over 30 jobs are created every time that there is this 1031 exchange, because the realtor is going to get a commission, the title insurance, the attorneys, I mean, all across the board, people are going to be getting money. Renovations, when you look at the issue of the laborers, the contractors, so there's 30 different jobs. So that's, as you can imagine, the spark plug in the engine of our economy. So that's the synergy that gets going and gets created. You also have other aspects of the 1031, which is conservation and agriculture. Farmers are cash poor and dirt rich. So a lot of farmers, they do 1031s all the time because they don't want to pay the capital gains tax. They don't have the money to pay that. But with what we work on with farmers, conservation groups come in and then say, hey, farmer, you have this property along this river or stream or whatever it is. We want to buy a portion of this from you. And then we want to be able to 1031 exchange that for you, so you don't have to, you can defer the capital gains taxes. And then you're able to lock this in for the environment, because we need to have a buffer for the future of these of the water that's running off of your farm going into the rivers and streams. So they love using having natural plantings and things like that to filter all of the different kind of pollutants. So that's an important thing as well.
Yep, we're back. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We're back live.
Okay, so with the time remaining, did you want me to go into what's happening with our advocacy efforts?
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way. I got cut off while you're talking about the example of farmers and conservation. So I am going to ask you, because you and I have talked about this, that I understand 1031 exchanges are under attack. It seems like there's a perspective out there, exchanges. So maybe you could talk about that.
Okay. Well, one of the things that happens, so this has been in the tax code, as I said, for over 100 years. People who are getting to the elected officials world, they think that the 1031 would be a great pay for things. So over the years, there's always been people saying, you know, we should get rid of the 1031. It's only for fat cats and for really big rich people. This doesn't help anybody. But once people start realizing that this actually is one of the most important things for commercial real estate to grow people's business, it stayed in the tax code for all these years. So as of right now, candidate Joe Biden has said that he would like to eliminate the 1031 exchange, among other things, and he would like to raise about $750 billion, which the 1031 would not raise, but he would like to use that as one of the things to pay for really, positive things like childcare and more medical care for seniors, which are laudable goals. But as we have been working with our coalition of people, it is important that we're letting a lot of the Democrat leaders understand, and also Republican leaders, why the 1031 is involved. It's so important in our economy. And when I tell people, when I was this last time going around for the 2017 bill that passed in Washington, it's amazing. The average age of a staffer working on Capitol Hill is about 22, and they're not sure about real estate and what all this is, and that's typical of Washington. So when I went in to talk to somebody about the 1031, I said, hey, I'm here to talk about 1031. They're like, no, it's 11 o'clock. And so they're not sure what a 1031 is. So, and you can't blame them. Yeah, you can't blame them, because there's so much that it's like drinking from a fire hose when you're an elected official out there. You're talking about the Israeli and Palestinian issue, then you're dealing with child welfare, and then you're dealing with the 1031 exchange. It's like, oh my gosh. So we have to really explain this to people and educate them. And it's an ongoing process to educate of why it's important. And so I've done different Zoom calls with our different elected officials from California to the East Coast. And one congressman in California by Napa Valley, he didn't realize that there were over $6 billion worth of 1031 exchanges just in his district alone. And that is the huge synergies that we talked about, because like I said, with every exchange, you have all these different people that are impacted. So if you don't have 1031 exchanges, you have a ceiling put on. Nobody's going to sell their property. They're going to hold on to it as long as they can. So one of the things that we deal with as realtors, when you're in the residential world, you want to make sure to have a vibrant commercial area. You don't like having blight. You don't like having dark stores. You don't like having apartment buildings that aren't up to date. And the way they get updated is because people are able to sell, do a 1031 exchange, and they're able then the new people who get it are able to have another 30% more to be able to invest in that property and to make it better and to put on a new roof or new windows or new driveway or whatever it is. And that has been part and parcel of who we are and what we're all about. So I just want to take one quick moment and highlight, this is my RPAC pin. It is super important that realtors invest in RPAC. You know why? Because we understand the very blood and sinew of our economy is based on real estate. Huge important part of it. And the realtors, the last time the 1031 was looking at being eliminated, the realtors had 10,000 people walking Capitol Hill. That 10,000. No other organization comes close to that. And there's a realtor in every congressional district that's assigned to every congressman and U.S. senator. And what we do is we just basically explain what it's like to be boots on the ground and understand this. And as realtors, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're the realtor party. And we're trying to explain, hey, you need to be aware of all these reasons why this 1031 exchange helps our economy and it helps the real estate industry. And you don't want to be that politician that's going to take that away, which will devastate our economy. When you look at COVID, candidate Biden his people put together this policy back before COVID started. And the Brookings Institute got the policy from February and March to evaluate. And that's where they found that candidate Biden wanted to get rid of the 1031 exchange. So this idea came up before COVID. It's still 1031, no matter if there's COVID or not, is vital to our economy. But with COVID, and you get rid of the 1031 exchange, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's going to be horrible. So this is not the time to tinker around and look at this. We got to get our sea legs back after this COVID stuff. But no matter what, we always have to keep this in play. And when you look at history, you want to understand this is vitally important. And when you look at all the different groups that support this, I mean, you have the huge National Association of Realtors, you have the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the multifamily housing, you have the Real Estate Roundtable, you have NAREIT, you have the Institute for Portfolio Alternatives, IPA, you have ADISA, there's so many different organizations, CCIM, SOIOR, RLI, Realtors Land Institute love 1031s because they're farm brokers. Farmers, this is what they do. This is how farmers are able to grow their farms through 1031 exchanges. And when you have growth happening, you have a farmer that can sell their property to 1031, buy another farm, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. So I'm kind of like the town crier. Keep the 1031 exchange. Keep the 1031 exchange.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, whatever anybody might think in terms of the government needing to raise more revenues, what you're suggesting is whatever you feel about that, this is just not the way to do it. It's the detriment is just far outweighs any kind of perceived benefit. Right?
Well, and our local and state governments would be really hurt with their budgets because they already get the transfer taxes, and the sales of these properties are important for their budgets too. Again, if you don't have the 1031, there's going to be a ceiling placed on it, and no one would sell. That's absolutely the truth. People would not sell because they'd have to pay 30% more because roughly to taxes and depreciation recapture and so on and so forth. But when you're able to have the 1031s, that keeps the economy rolling. And when you look at taxes with the 1031s, you have realtors that are paying income tax on their commissions because realtors want to sell, right? They want to help their clients, and this is the big tool that they're able to help their clients with. Plus, the lawyers pay income tax. The trade people that are doing this, all the title companies, everybody, the MLS world. I mean, they have properties to sell, so that it would really clam things down, and that is exactly what we don't need.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So there are other revenues that would disappear.
Yes.
That's an interesting argument for sure. Now I know that you've made a lot of efforts regarding trying to protect the Section 1031. So I'm going to ask you quickly, Dan, to touch on organized real estate, what they're doing about this, and how we can support that, and also individuals, and what can individuals do outside of organized real estate maybe to protect Section 1031 exchanges?
Well, one of the things that we're so grateful, the National Association of Realtors has incredible staff. You have Bill Mulcahy, you have Shannon McGann, you have Joe Ventrone, and then all their staff, like Evan Lydiard is like the guru of gurus of 1031 exchanges and all of tax. So the realtors really have, they're leading the charge with this, with all these other groups like the Real Estate Roundtable. They have people from the Federation of Exchange Accommodators. That's the qualified intermediary group. About 16 different real estate organizations are all involved in this. CCIM, SOIR, RLI, as I mentioned. But you also have the Mortgage Bankers Association. You have the Commercial Real Estate Finance Council. All these different groups, and besides them, you have the CPA Society, you have the bar associations, and then you have all the conservation groups. I'm a board member on the Conservation Foundation, which represents the counties outside of Cook. And again, 1031 is one of the reasons how they're able to protect open space, and it helps save rivers and streams. So the coalition is very broad. And again, it's not a Democrat coalition. It's not a Republican coalition. It's a coalition of industry, of real estate, of conservation, of law, all these different groups, of tax, accounting. All these groups understand why this is so important. And this isn't like something that's 10 minutes old. This has been around for 100 years, just like NSBAR has been around for 100 years. It's not going away. This is important to make sure that people understand history, and we understand our history, and we make sure to follow it, because it's all working really well. And the proof is in the pudding. You have the Ernst & Young studies being updated. The National Association of Realtors is helping with that. So a lot of companies like ours, other people are helping with that. You have the Lynn Petrova studies. So all these studies are being updated. So it's not just a pie in the sky. It's empirical evidence that is actually quantitative. You're able to identify exactly how this impacts. GDP goes down by $8 billion a year if the 1031's not there. It's horrible to see what would happen to our economy. And again, with COVID, this is not what we need to do. Our engine is already backfiring right now in commercial real estate. You don't want the engine to seize up. We want it to keep going.
That's certainly true. With commercial struggling a bit, NAR's out, obviously in favor of protecting Section 1031 exchanges. IR is,
yes.
Illinois Realtors. Yeah. So,
yep.
Okay. So is there anything else that we've not spoken about?
Well, what you can do, what everybody's listening to me, your congressman in your area, I think, is Brad Schneider. Brad is a big supporter of 1031, but it's helpful for him if he hears from his local constituents and say, hey, this is important to us as realtors, and thanks for your support, Brad, because he understands it. He's done 1031. So he's a really smart guy. You have Congressman Quigley. I mean, he might represent you. Jan Schakowsky, you probably want to talk to her. So if you could individually talk to, and then obviously Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, you want to make sure they're aware of it. And it's not Democrat, it's not Republican. It's like roads. You have to have roads to get places. You have to have 1031s to run real estate. It just is a parcel of what we do.
Well, and I say I apologize for my power going out, but there's nothing I could have done about that. But I'm going to have you back, and we'll be able to have a continuous conversation,
okay.
Which I think would be nice. I would like to do that, but I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us about this. And the next time on, we'll talk about some other really fun income tax provision.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you being on. That's a wrap. Please don't forget to keep an eye on NSBAR communications to stay current, and look for committee signups and the awards installation information. Thank you, Bradley Laberman, for the great job running the board. And thanks to you for tuning in to Raising the NSBAR. I very much appreciate it. Talk to you soon.